Hey friends, welcome back to another Wellness Wednesday. The sky is blue, at least some of it, and the sun keeps peeking through, and so I felt like I had to get outside. Can you hear those goats? Oh my goodness. They're not just out here screaming all the time. It's as soon as someone walks out the door, then they start screaming, and the chickens come running. It's like you're the most popular person in the world around here. Okay, so yesterday, if you guys tuned into coffee chat over on Lindsay's channel, where we get together on Tuesday mornings and do our coffee chat, you will know that I disappeared from the coffee chat because we had a windstorm yesterday and our power went out at about 10 a.m. and it didn't come back on until about 8 p.m. So about 10 hours. It was windy, stormy, rainy, a disaster. And so now that everything seems to be so much more clear and beautiful, the sun even peeking out, I figured I should be outside. You guys just think I have something for you, but I sure don't. I sure don't. You can see there's like branches like this everywhere, and we'll go up and survey the damage. We know one big branch fell from a tree up here, but there's just like stuff like this everywhere. All right, we'll go see the goats. They're dying for someone to come visit. Oh, hi, Double. Oh, hi, Double. I should have brought you treats, too. Why do I always forget to bring you treats, huh? Nibbles? Nibbles, are you doing okay? Hi, Nibbles. Oh, Toro, you're just yelling over here. Think I forgot about you? Hi, Toro. Hi. You okay over here? So here are some big branches that fell. Definitely, I'm pretty sure these are the biggest ones that fell, but that will make some good firewood. Look at that. Wow, that's a lot. So for this Wellness Wednesday, I just wanted to talk about my intentions for January and like some goals I'm setting for myself. You could call them New Year's resolutions, although it's more like a January challenge. It's not necessarily stuff for the entire year. It's just I'm setting my sights on January to make some changes and then kind of see how it goes from there. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago, I think, how there's kind of a negative thoughts about having New Year's resolutions and how you should just eat the same way all throughout the year, and so you don't have to make any changes for the new year. You're already good to go, which I respect that if that's, your life choice. But my life kind of goes through the pattern, which I think is pretty natural in human history, of feast and then more leaner times, and leaner meaning just less exciting food and kind of the opposite of feasting. And so I see the holidays as kind of a feasting time where I enter in socially a lot more with different kinds of foods and more fun foods and maybe things considered less healthy nutritionally, although I would argue that they can contribute to health because they contribute to your health emotionally and socially, but that's a talk for another time. But of course we know here in the Western world that when you feast 24/7, 365, it ends up being unhealthy, and it has to be kind of balanced out with some less feasting times. Not necessarily fasting, although some people use fasting for that, but just, leaner times, less exciting food, cutting back, eating more for nutrition only rather than for the pleasure of it, and just kind of creating that balance there. And so for me, that's how I look at times like January. It's a time where it actually works out pretty well socially and in community because a lot of people are doing the same thing. So you can cut back and not be feasting, and it's not as isolating socially right there in January. So it's a great time for a reset. I tend to do some kind of a reset in January and then oftentimes in October because we have our beach trip in September. So that's more of a feasting time. And then October is kind of right there in between the holidays and the fun of the summer. And so I tend to do some kind of a reset at that point. And I have kind of developed this pattern over the last several years, and it really started with when I would do Whole30s. I really like the approach of Whole30, the Whole30 program to diet and health, not necessarily the diet itself, although I think it's a really great place to start. It was a really great place for me to start, but more like the mindset behind it, where you use some kind of a reset, some kind of an elimination diet where you just kind of learn how to listen to your body better, kind of get a better handle on what foods are good for you all the time, what foods are bad for you all the time, and what foods are okay some of the time. And you, like what they say with the Whole30 is you're not meant to live that way all the time. It's not a whole life. It's a Whole30. And it's just meant to be used as a tool. And that's the way that I kind of have started using the carnivore diet, or kind of my variation of the carnivore diet. I don't like to say carnivore diet because there's always someone who carnivores harder than you and will say, you're not carnivore because you have, black pepper on your meat along with your salt. So I don't ever like to use the term carnivore unless it's like just meat and salt. But it's like carnivore based, carnivore-ish. So it works out well for me because I have just finished up my SIBO supplement protocol, and I'm supposed to do a couple of weeks without my L-reuteri yogurt because that can mess up the breath test to see where I'm at as far as the SIBO goes. And so I figured I would just take that 2 weeks and do kind of a carnivore-ish challenge. So right towards the middle of January, I'll be able to do my SIBO breath test. And then after I get that finished, I will, I'm planning, as long as I feel fine and want to continue, I'm planning to just add back in my different homemade yogurts, the SIBO yogurt with the 3 strains that I showed you in a video a couple weeks ago, and the L-reuteri. And just do the rest of January the same as I was, the carnivore-ish diet along with the yogurts, and just kind of see how I feel with that. So I sat down this morning and just kind of wrote out my intentions for my diet as well as like for movement and stuff, because that's going to be a big goal for me this year, I think, is just to get my exercise to a better place. It is not in a good place right now. I need to get more movement. My movement is just kind of scattered. Whenever there's some, big farm chores that need to be done, I'll get movement in, but it's not consistent, and I really need it to be consistent. And I also really need like stretching and yoga, and just to keep my body flexible. I need strength training. So anyways, I sat down and I wrote out like my food plans as far as what I'm going to be doing for the month, just because it's easy to like make tweaks in the middle, like when you're in the middle of experiencing boredom or cravings and you're like, oh, this wouldn't be so bad. And then you add it in. But when you're, when you have the presence of mind at the beginning to sit down and just write out your intentions, it's a lot easier to stick with just the better choices, I guess. Write down all the better choices, and then since they're written down and they're in your head, they're easier to stick with when you do come to those moments of boredom. It's less easy to justify it, I guess, when you have your intentions written down. So that's what I did this morning. So as far as the diet goes, I have basically developed my reset based on foods that I know I do well with. And this is like what I told you about the Whole30. Their intention is that you don't necessarily have to go back to a Whole30 every time you do a reset. Through the Whole30, you learn what foods are the best for you, and then you kind of are able to create your own reset, whatever brings you back to the basics. You have a place to start, which is great, but then through doing it, you kind of learn your own reset. So, because I thought about doing like BBBE or something like that, and I'm like, that would just cut out too many things that I know I do well with, and it's like, why make it harder than it has to be? So anyways, my basically what I'm doing as far as my diet is going to be all meats, like regular fresh meats, chicken, pork, beef, fish, any kind of seafood, although I don't eat a lot of seafood. Maybe that would be a good thing to add at some point in some challenge. So any kind of meat. And then I wrote it all down so that I could remember everything. I'm going to continue to do cream in my coffee. I'm not going to like go overboard on it, like making all kinds of cream sauces and stuff. But just in my coffee, that's the main place that I use cream. And then butter, going to keep butter in my diet, and ghee and things like that. Any kind of animal fat is totally fine. And then seasonings, I I never have noticed that I respond badly to seasonings. So I'm going to keep the seasonings in. I'm just not going to, again, go overboard with it. I'm not going to encrust something in everything but the bagel seasoning or something like that that's like a really, really heavy seasoning. Things like lemon juice, apple cider vinegar, those things, fine. Tea and coffee, I'm going to keep in. I've gone without both for extended periods of time, and it didn't make my life better. So it's not worth it to me to cut those out and go through the withdrawals and stuff. Keeping the coffee in. I'm also going to continue with electrolytes, even the flavored ones. Again, the stevia is something that, ooh, the wind is picking up. Stevia is something that I cut out for, it was at least 2 years, if not 3 years. I had been using it pretty regularly, and I got on the bandwagon of all sweet taste is going to kill you. And so I cut it out for literally years. And again, it was another one of those things where I added it back and I was like, I don't see any difference in my appetite. I'm not having more cravings. It's not causing any noticeable issues for me. The only thing it's causing is that I enjoy things more. So that's why I don't cut it out. So I'll continue to have my electrolytes. I've been enjoying like the chocolate salt element electrolytes in my coffee, or not in my coffee, in my tea. I don't like it in my coffee because I don't like sweetener in coffee. But I'll continue to have like the tea with the element electrolytes, and then like the fruity flavors of electrolytes. That seems to be no issue for me, and I get way more benefit from it than any kind of negative that I'm able to notice. So definitely not cutting that out. I thought about egg white bread, and I know a lot of people assume that I just eat egg white bread all day, every day, with every single meal. But it's actually not true. I don't know that I've even had any egg white bread for like 2 weeks now. I go long periods of time where I don't eat it. I'll get an idea of like a recipe I want to try, so I make it and then I eat it for a while. But it is not something that I have as part of my everyday diet. I've had some people like try to say that any of my issues that I have is, oh, it's because you eat so much egg bread. I'm like, well, I don't actually. And I don't want to like develop an allergy to egg whites. So I don't love some of the diets out there that are, more PSMF focused and like eat egg whites with every single meal constantly. Not that there's anything wrong with egg whites, but eating them every day in large quantities, you can develop allergies to that kind of thing, which I definitely don't want to do. So it's not something that I have all the time. It's just like everything else. I like to have a variety so that I don't, get intolerant to something. Same thing with egg whites. And so I was thinking about egg white bread, and if I do have some, which I may not, because like I said, it's not a staple of my everyday diet, but if I do have some during January, I'm just going to make some that had like a variety that has no starch, none of the arrowroot, and none of the like acacia fiber or psyllium husk, and just kind of keep it as a basic egg white bread, like with the frozen shredded butter. That's a great way to make it more carnivore-ish. I don't have a problem with a little bit of allulose spread out through a whole loaf. I'm not planning on using a lot of allulose to like sweeten foods and like make desserts or anything during the month of January, but I don't have any issue with like 2 tablespoons of allulose spread through a whole batch of rolls or something. So I will incorporate that if I feel like making egg white bread, but we will see about that. I am going to cut out cheese. I'm not cutting out dairy because I do want to add the yogurt back after 2 weeks, and I didn't want to cut out butter and cream, but I did decide that I would reduce my dairy a little bit and just cut out the cheese and see how that goes. I also am going to cut out the athletic greens. I have been taking those for, 6 months or more now. And I have actually started cutting back on them after I got my micronutrient tests done and saw that I was actually doing really well on all of my micronutrients that I got tested. And I wasn't before. That was the thing, is before I started taking the athletic greens, I had some deficiencies and some areas that I really needed to improve. And I felt like I did improve those through the athletic greens and possibly through working on my digestive system and allowing my body to actually digest and absorb the nutrients from the food I'm eating, which I don't feel like it was doing a good job of that before. So because of both of those things, I feel okay with cutting out the athletic greens for the month. They do have some fiber in them. And so just, to try to cut all of the fiber back and do a carnivore-ish type diet for the month, I just figured I'd give it a try to cut that out, see how I feel, and then possibly add it back in later, and then again, see how I feel there. I had talked about, like, when I was planning what I was going to do for my SIBO, I had talked about how doing a very strict carnivore diet, which what I'm doing for January does not qualify as a very strict carnivore diet, but doing that is an approach that is possibly a good approach for eradicating SIBO. But at that point, I decided not to go with it because of my micronutrient deficiencies. And I felt like I was getting such a benefit from the very absorbable bunch of nutrients from the athletic greens, and I wasn't willing to give that up because of like the state my body was in at that point. Since I have really corrected a lot of those things, I'm now at the point where, that's not as big of a concern, and that's a big reason why I am willing to stop the athletic greens for the month and just kind of see where I'm at. Because, I used them as a tool to get my nutrients up, and it worked magnificently. And they are all, that I've gotten tested in a really good place. And so it's like, why spend the money? And if my gut is actually functioning better than it was, and I'm actually absorbing the nutrients from food, then I shouldn't need as many supplements. I think it's a great approach to use supplements as you need them to get your body to a place where you don't need them anymore. And that would be like the ultimate goal. I would continue to take it as long as I need it, which for some people that's going to be forever. There's sometimes our bodies are broken in such a way that we just continue to need the supplementation. But if you're able to actually get your body healthier so that you can actually eat healthy food and absorb the nutrients from that and not need the supplementation, that is the best way to go. So anyways, we'll do that trial without the athletic greens and see how it goes. Now, as far as movement, my commitment for January is that I want to try to do yoga 3 times a week. I use the Down Dog app. I absolutely love it. It is incredibly cheap, in my opinion, for what you get. I think it's like $40 a year. So, I just think it's such an incredible program, and I'm not sponsored in any way by Down Dog. Although, if they wanted to sponsor me, that would be fantastic. But it's such an incredible app. And they have like a running app. They have a meditation app. They have bar app exercises. They have a HIIT training app. And that's all included in the $40 a year. And I think they probably have a sale going on right now since it's about the first of the year. They usually do that. So it might even be cheaper than that. So anyways, I'm going to use that for my yoga. And then I am going to add in some strength training. And I have a set of adjustable dumbbells that I bought right before I found out about my iron issues, because I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to add in the exercise. And then I found out about my iron issues, and exercise and iron deficiency is kind of tricky. And so I didn't end up starting using them. But I'm at the point where I'm ready to start using them. So what I want to try to do is 3 days a week of strength training. So if I do yoga and strength training on different days, that's exercising 6 days a week. But I don't necessarily have to do them on different days. I could do the strength training and then do the yoga on the same day. So I could do as little as 3 days a week of exercise, or as much as 6 days a week of exercise. And I think that's going to be, where I start. And as far as what kind of strength training, I think simple with strength training is fine. It's fun to do different exciting workouts and have, variety, but it's really not necessary with strength training. As long as you're continually, increasing the weight and stuff, you can do really simple exercises and it be effective. I love, Dr. Tita's approach, and I have Instagram post of his that I saved, and it's basically like strength training for beginners in an Instagram post. I will link it down below for you guys to check out, but it's just like Don't make it overcomplicated. Just do these simple things. Do them consistently. Continue to increase the weight to challenge yourself, and that's good enough. And so that's all I'm going to try to do. So anyways, that is my plan for January. It's kind of like a two-phase thing where I'm going to do the 2 weeks of the carnivore-ish with no yogurt, then do the breath test, and then reassess and probably continue on adding in the yogurt again, see how I feel, and just try to get my movement in consistently, and we'll see how it goes. So I will keep you guys updated on how that goes for me. I'm planning on doing plenty of what I eat in a day videos, so you can kind of see what my carnivore-ish reset is like in real life. I also just applied a new CGM yesterday. I'm very curious to know what this kind of a diet does to my blood glucose, because some people actually have their blood sugar go high on a carnivore diet. And when I've done carnivore before, I never had a CGM on, so I don't know how my body responded or will respond this time. So that will be very interesting. I will definitely include all of that information in like the what I eat in a day videos and my updates for Wellness Wednesday. Let me know what you guys are planning for January. If you're challenging yourself, let's chat down in the comments, and I will see you again in another video.